How many times over the past few years have we asked ourselves, has the world gone crazy? Lunacy in politics, in mainstream media, in corporate American HR policies, and most disturbingly, lunacy in our public school systems. This attempt to create a new normal for Western society is wrapped in an ideology of neo-Marxism, a doctrine of division, hatred, and rejection of Judeo-Christian values. The more common term for this cultural epidemic is wokeism. Wokeism has become a tool of inculcation and indoctrination in public schools to the point where school boards and school teachers have become absolute enablers and apologists for this new replacement belief system. One such teacher in the public school system in California, of all places, decided to fight back. Joshua Fontanilla and his wife, both public school teachers with graduate degrees, decided to reject wokeism, reject California's brand of socialism, relocate their family, and offer an alternative to American children based on the conservative principles that our country was built on. Joshua Fontanilla, founder of Exodus Institute, today on Resonant Truth. Joshua Fontanilla, thank you so much for joining the podcast with us this afternoon.
Thanks for having me.
Well, let's get started. Your story is an amazing story. It's a story of two people that are standing up against untruth and two people leveraging their skills, their commitment, and education to demonstrate and teach truth. And that's not an easy thing to do. It's easy to say it's not an easy thing to do, but that's exactly what you and Kylie have done in your mission for the Exodus Institute. Can you talk about that just a little bit to start the discussion off? I'd like to define terms a little bit as you talk about maybe the genesis of your rejection and departure from the California educational system. What is wokeism from your perspective, and what specifically were you rejecting and making a stand on?
What is wokeism? I would say that wokeism, if you really want to get down to it, the brass tacks underneath, kind of the current event stuff. Wokeism is just Marxism that has been repackaged for modern America. That's really what it is. I mean, instead of Marx's, the workers versus the owners, it's black versus white, or white versus all the minorities, or male versus female. Or it's a way to deconstruct and really overthrow the traditional values we have in the U.S. and the country itself, to take it over in a socialist revolution. And it's just repackaged in ways that will, it's smart marketing for Marxists. I think that's what it is. And so all the stuff that, when you get to the surface level, the things like the gender ideology and the pushing the alphabet mafia, like I like to call them, or pushing the pronoun stuff, or pushing all the racial division and systemic racism and all this kind of stuff that they have. Really, that's the stuff that's on the surface. But really, what they want is some type of socialist revolution in this country. So that to me, that's what wokeism is, and it includes a lot of different subjects. But yeah, that's basically it.
And how did you see that specifically manifest in the school system? Did you see teachers being more autonomous from a standpoint of deciding which part of the ideology to integrate themselves in a customized way? Or did you actually see this on a more systemic level where curriculums and those sorts of general themes were taken over by the ideology and affected by it?
I'd say it's both. You know, at this stage of the game, we're pretty late in the cultural Marxist revolution that's been happening in America for decades. I mean, they played the long game, and they came in and they took over our universities decades ago, took over the teaching professions, and they took over the training for teachers, which is very smart, because then you train the next generation of teachers, and then from there you know it's all an avalanche. You know, it just builds on itself. So when you go to, you know, a California public school and you're dealing with your coworkers, a lot of this stuff you don't even have to tell them to do, because it's so ingrained in them. They're so, you know, they're hardcore dyed in the wool liberals, and, you know, to use that term loosely, they're leftists, more accurately. The majority, vast majority, it's not even close. And so you see it in just the way that they approach every subject. You know, you think, okay, well, there's these specific classes, and there are some that specifically push, like critical race theory, for example. My wife got some attention for exposing some of the lessons that we pulled off of the district website. But it's even just in every classroom. It's in English, and it's, you know, it's in the culture of the teachers, but it's also in the curriculum itself. So, for example, I was teaching 11th grade English as my main subject when I left. I also taught some lower level high school students as well, but my main curriculum for 11th grade, I went through the first unit just kind of as a test, because I thought, you know what, all this stuff sounds very left leaning. And I went and I researched every single one of the writers, because nowadays in English class, you don't actually read, really, you don't read whole books. You'll read little segments, articles, things like that, for the most part, for most of the year. And so there's all these authors, and I looked, okay, here's about, there was 19, I think, in the first unit. And of that 19, if I recall right, it was something like 14 out of 19 were either leaning left or just straight up socialist communists, maybe one Republican and a couple neutral. And so that gives you an idea that that's the English curriculum. That's not even, you know, the more radical classes. And then on top of all of that, when you close the doors in a classroom, you talk about autonomy. Teachers do pretty much whatever they want. So take this as a warning, parents. If you are in a state, you think, oh, okay, well, California's bad. Yeah, well, the teaching profession in general leans left. And even if you are in a red state where they outlaw certain books from the curriculum, just because it's outlawed from the curriculum does not mean when the teacher closes the doors, they can't just say, well, we're going to learn this as an extra lesson today. And what's going to happen? You know, a lot of times they all they can do is maybe remove it from the libraries or remove it from the official curriculum. But some of this stuff, they're still sneaking in there. When the doors close, I'll tell you right now, teachers do teach whatever they want, to a large degree. So yeah, autonomy, I don't know. It seems like they force you to push, forgive my dog here. It seems like they force you to push the leftist stuff, but then they give the leftists more autonomy to push even more. So I don't
And
know.
I think something, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Josh. A lot of the stuff that the teachers are told to teach, that's prescribed at a higher state level. And so you talk about getting your stuff from the district. You don't really have a lot of choices. And at the end of the school year, during the testing period, students must answer the questions that they're supposed to be studying, you know, throughout the year. So, and a lot of that, and by the way, you've hit so many different areas, because I have a master's in sociology and I taught sociology at the university level for 6 years or more. And I'm also have an English degree. I think it's that one right there, right there. I'm an English. So and that's I will talk to kids today, like at college. I'll say, hey, what books are you reading? And they're talking about these books, and I'm like, have you read anything that was like before 2016? And they won't read the classics. Because
Mhm.
if they read the classics, that is a different worldview than they want the kids to know, which for me, and I was born in the 60s. I'm not old as him, but I'm still pretty young. So but we had the canon was still there. But
Mm, mm,
I went to Oregon State University, and I remember when they started challenging the canon, and I go, okay, fine, but I mean, Hemingway, Steinbeck, Fitzgerald, all the greats, they're great
mhm,
for a reason. And they go, oh, have you read so and so? And I'm like, well, not so good, not so great. But the thing is, though, it's the message that they like more. So it's not the craft, it is the communication that they want. What do they want communicated? And that's
mm,
that's very sad because like I love Vonnegut or Huxley, who
mhm, mhm.
is challenging the status quo. And like even in my sociology classes, I'll have them read short stories or snippets just to have some social commentary. But I know the feminists in my class don't like that stuff. You know,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
that's kind of sad. But so Jeff, just to say, they really are. And I would bet, and you let me know, Josh, that if you don't toe the line, you get punished.
You'll get punished on certain things for sure if you try to not go along with the trans stuff, not call a kid, their preferred pronouns, which thankfully I never had to deal with, and because I wasn't going to do it. And I knew I needed to get out of there before they put me to that test. I know of a teacher in California who got fired over a hypothetical. Didn't even happen. They asked, what would you do in this situation, and got fired over it. So they will punish you for certain things like that. The curriculum, it's the way it works. It's more of a peer pressure thing in California, where all the teachers are on the same page, and you only have so much time. Like, I'll give you an example. We had 5 units to cover in English class over the year, and there was no way we were getting done with more than 3 of them. And so they jam pack all this stuff in, and they're focusing on the curriculum's already written in a woke way, and they're focusing on all these woke topics. And so if you want to try and even balance it out, good luck having any time for it. And then there's the pressure from your hey, we're on the clock, we gotta get this done by this time. And so they call it a professional learning community, PLC, in grade schools. I don't know what they do. You guys are more familiar at the college level teaching that kind of stuff, but at that, you're pretty much, we're all on the same track. All the teachers are teaching the same thing, and there's very little room for deviation just because of scheduling, if nothing else. So you try and push in some stuff that's gonna balance it. They could get you in trouble just for the time frame stuff, but then if you go too far, then yeah, there's going to be debate, and there's going to be some pressure.
I think that the part that bothers me most as a teacher, as an educator, is if I am forced to violate my conscience. I think now, if I was not at Liberty, but at the other school, they would try to force me to use the pronouns. And I go, listen, I don't want to do any harm to that student. I love the student, right? And
Hmm,
I
hmm,
see someone who's transgender, and I think troubled person. That's what I think.
hmm.
Right? So I don't
Yeah,
want
yeah.
to add any more trauma to them. But I don't think pretending that if they have gender dysphoria, pretending doesn't help them. I want to just be
No, no.
let them be loved, and to be. I think that the loss of intellectual freedom.
Hmm,
When I think California, especially the education system or the whole thing, I think they've lost these freedoms like that. That like that's hate speech, and I go, it's just critical speech. Well, that's hateful,
hmm.
but they could do. But of course, it's so one-sided.
What's the term now? There's so many acronyms in education. That's one of the worst parts. But it's the social emotional learning. Yeah, yes, SEL stuff, social emotional learning stuff. And they were having this big staff meeting, and the principal tells us that if a student is transitioning, we need to be able to be like counselors to be able to help that student, and to be that ear for if the student can't take it home to parents because their parents are going to judge them because their parent and making the parents seem like these horrible people for not accepting that kind of stuff, and you're supposed to be the one that like almost helps the kid to transition. And it's like, what in the world? I'm here to teach English. What is this? It's
Well, and
just nonsense.
I think that's the problem. And I've encountered this at other schools where I taught psychology. They go, well, it's like therapy. And I go, no, that's one, not in the course description. Two, I don't have the training. I didn't have the training. Then now I do, but I still think I go, okay, and I want, I want all students to learn if I can, but not every student is ready for every level of education. You know what I mean? So there's some kids in 4 years.
And did the parents choose to send their kid to a therapist or to a school?
Well, I think I think there's the shame of counseling. So like, oh, we'll send them to like whatever the conservative school it was.
Yeah, yeah.
That'll take care of it. But again, the problem is I go, I don't know if that helps. I mean, I'm really good at history and I'm really good at English and sociology and religion, right? But counseling, I'm like, well, I mean, you're talking if someone's doing
Uh-huh.
transgender stuff, that's they have a long past history, and that's needs someone to take the time to do it, and it also handicaps the rest of the class,
Yeah,
right? Because you have to
yeah,
stop
yeah,
that's the radical individualism of the age, where
yeah,
you have the individual education plan, right? And
yeah,
I
yeah,
go,
yeah, yeah.
it used to be just for special cases. Now it's for everybody.
Oh, everyone has IEPs now. Everyone has the individual educational plan. And I'll tell you something else is these teachers. So like, yourself and myself, we hear this and we're like, hey, I'm not qualified. But a lot of these teachers, there's because education is dominated by females, and there is a lot of this kind of adoptive mother energy going on, where they think that they want to be the best friend, they want to be the counselor, they want to be your mom, some of these teachers would be thrilled if their students were calling them mom. I bet you're my second mom or something, like they would be thrilled. I feel like God created us to have that kind of drive, and so these people, they have their own religion and they have their own drive, their own mission field, so to speak, and that is their cause, is to, I'm going to take on these children and mold them in my worldview, and they think they're saving the world by doing that.
Yeah.
And so what happens in education is, partly because it doesn't pay very well, the people who go into it are like martyrs. We talk about that in education a lot, the martyr teachers, the teachers who, stay until, 3-4 hours after school every day, and they're doing all this extra stuff, and then they go home and create these perfect lessons. And there really are a lot of these workaholic teachers, and a lot of them are women, and they just will give everything to these children, and it's their cause. And but connected with that is their liberalism, is their leftist ideology. And so it's this, and we see this and we're like, hey, my job is to teach English, or whatever, kind of very narrow, like, academic thing. And these teachers are like, I'm going to give my all. And those are the ones who excel. Those are the ones who become the leaders. They're the ones who are creating the culture in education. And they're the ones who get named Teacher of the Year. And they end up framing the curriculums and so forth, because they're the ones who go to the top in education. And so you have this weird, you're not their mom, but they want to be their mom. And that's the vibe in education a lot.
I think we live in a very graceless age where people very opportunistic. So when I think left and I think woke, I think exploitive and opportunistic. So they take advantage of the people and to gain that hegemony, to gain that dominance, and then they want to influence. And it's so very vain. And I think I have some good things to offer, but I know that as an educator, I need people like you and even the guys like Jeff. Even Jeff, we need each other, right? In order to balance each other. And the checks and balances that used to be in place in education, I don't think are there anymore. Because when I think, and this is Oregon too, I think anywhere that's like, let's face it, leftists are in control, it's so very fascist. And they're not trying to teach you
Mm-hmm.
how to think, they're teaching you what to think. And
Hmm.
that's wrong. And I'm like going, I mean, I have no problem having anybody read anything by Karl Marx. I teach history and sociology. I go, let's read Karl Marx. What's right about it? What's wrong about it? You know,
Hmm. Hmm.
and
Hmm.
that's what you're supposed to do. But that's not what they do. I'm not even supposed to even bring it up. You know,
Hmm.
I've been teaching at a couple of colleges online in Oregon, and it's very difficult because the kids also they don't want to be challenged. And I'm like,
No.
that's what education's about. I always say
Hmm.
this, Bible does not say a polishing cloth sharpens iron. You need iron sharpening iron. There's
Yes.
sparks. And they go, well, if you're a good
Yes.
teacher, there'll be no sparks. And I go, well, that's garbage.
So Joshua, let me pick up from something you said and something John just touched on. Um, you've used the word indoctrination quite a bit,
Yeah.
both earlier comments here and in past interviews that you've done. How do you distinguish that specifically in what you rejected and then in what you're building with the Exodus Institute? How do you distinguish a curriculum, a strategy, or a methodology of legitimate indoctrination compared to what would be taught in a Christian school? Because some people may claim any embrace of ideology and philosophy over the so-called hard sciences is some form of indoctrination. Now, I know there's a difference. My guess is you're very clear on what the difference is in what you and Kali decided to create with the Exodus Institute. I wonder if you'd comment on that.
Yeah, it's a good question. Well, I would say that, and I'm trying to answer this carefully. There's two different ways to look at it. One is the fact that when you're talking about public school, we're talking about taxpayer dollars, we're talking about forced attendance, basically, a captive audience. Um, when I was a public school teacher, I'll tell you, I'll put it this way. When I was a public school teacher, I did not force my opinion on my students because I felt that would be inappropriate.
Hmm.
It's a captive audience. They have to be there. They get in trouble. There's truancy laws if their parents will get in trouble if they're not sent to school to some form, right? Depending on what state you're in. But in California, Kamala might lock you up if you don't send your kids to school. So it would be inappropriate for me, for example, to go in there and start saying, I'm going to, teach you my religion or tell you why you should vote in a certain way, right? That's too far. I would show both sides of the argument and try and balance things out, and as time permitted, because it's the curriculum is so slanted one direction, try to give you a little bit of a balance and try to get you to question things a little bit and look at both sides. But even with the just the picking of subjects and the picking of the topics. So okay, so there's the one side, which is you try to stay neutral if you're a public school teacher, and that is not what's happening. A lot of these, like I said, when you close the door, a lot of these teachers have no qualms. They have no conscience that says I shouldn't force my ideology on students. They've gone way past that. A lot of these leftist teachers, they believe, and you got to put yourself in their mind frame, they believe that they have the moral high ground, that they are morally on the right side of history, to use the term that leftists always like to say. They believe that they are right, and the other side is evil and going to like kill the world, literally. They think you're going to bring on global warming and all this stuff, and so because they think they are so right, they go beyond, okay, let me have a discussion with you and try and prove you. No, 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 I'm already right. Let's move past that. Now we're going towards you need to agree with me or be shamed. And that's their mindset toward the students. And I'm going to teach you I'm going to demand that you act upon my values and my belief system. They go way past discussion over who's right, and they go on to, you better be with me at the march, right? I'm going to give you extra credit, or make it an assignment that you go to this BLM rally and, tell me how you would, I don't know, how you would, like, if you were in the civil rights era, what would you do? And, well, why aren't you doing that today? That kind of stuff sounds crazy to us, but that is what's going on in the public schools with these leftist teachers. Now, that's inappropriate. That's happening in a forced system, in a taxpayer-funded system that should be neutral. Now, there's another angle to this, and the other angle is, if you choose to send your child to a conservative school, a Christian school, what do you get there, right? Is there some level of, hey, I'm going to instill these specific values, I'm going to teach certain subjects, I'm going to focus on certain things? Yes, absolutely. And I think to some degree, it's a fool's errand to try and be completely neutral. It's not possible, and the left has no qualms about, pushing their ideology. And if you are, I'm not telling you to do this in a public school, but if you're in a private school setting, like our school is a private school, and you want to send your student to our setting, we're conservative. We're going to teach American values. I'm going to show students why the American system is better. Now, I'm going to do it in a way that kind of looks at both sides and both arguments, and I'm going to show them logically why it's better. Mm-hmm. But I'm not going to be like, hey, if you think Marxism is great, then that's your opinion. No, I'm going to show them why that's wrong. I'm going to show them the problems. If you print money forever, your country will collapse. For example, I'm going to show them things like that.
I think so. For me, I mean, it's just like, and Jeff and I have had, hours and hours and hours of talk. So we have great discussions about this. But my big thing is, I don't really care if you're a Democrat or Republican. I just want you to be a good thinker. And as a Christian, I want you to be biblically minded, and I want you to be well read. That's my thing.
Yeah.
And so you're talking about the different curriculum and what they're having them do and the different assignments they do. And I think you heard about the guy, I think he's in North Carolina, actually, where the kid got expelled because he used the word illegal alien.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, so there's no freedom of speech anymore? He can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, there's nothing profane or vulgar about those things. It's completely political. I'd be splitting the pants off that teacher. And by the way, that teacher is a cad and a villain because he's abusing his or her position over the student. I'm like going, I mean, I cannot tell you how many students I've had with whom I disagree. And I'm okay. So I need to see the evidence, right? So if you think abortion is good for the woman, then I want to see all the evidence, not just the stuff you get from Planned Parenthood. What does it do to mentally, et cetera? Also, I'm like, I don't want you to read a social studies textbook. I want you to read historical, primary source documents. So you really know, because if you're just getting it from someone who wrote after like 2016, well, it's not really going to be that good. You can read the classics and it's good. So that's a sad thing. And the other thing I was just thinking about too is how sad this is in a lot of public education systems where the teachers do not respect the parents. They become like the parents are the enemy. And I'm like, I'm trying to help the student do well in life and at work and at home, try to give them skills. And the parent's not the enemy.
So the core of the distinction then, as I'm hearing from both of you, is not teaching someone what to think, but teaching someone how to think. Joshua, my master's degree is in Christian apologetics. Christianity does not fear vetting whatsoever.
No.
We none of us that stand on the principles of Christ fear any challenges from a standpoint of reality, philosophy, perspective, any of it. And I think that there's two ways that this deviant ideology that we're seeing in America today is destructive. One, it does not teach kids how to think. And secondly, even aside from the ideology itself and the principles of racism and divisiveness that it absolutely is inculcating, But the issue is it's simply not preparing children for life as an adult to operate as in a civilized society. It just simply is not empowering those children with those fundamental tools. And I saw that theme in your comments of what was the final straw for you. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, on the one hand, you could say we almost have a I mean, the world that we're in, it's a train wreck, it's a clown world, but you have an opportunity in every crisis, and one of the opportunities we have is we're able to teach students how to critically analyze the craziness of wokeism, by just kind of logically walking them through how it doesn't make sense. And so by doing that, they're learning how to spot when somebody's trying to lie to them, when somebody's trying to pull the wool over their eyes. And so we have a lot of subjects where we do that, where we, for example, because we have to deconstruct this stuff for these kids. You can't just come in and say, well, the left says this and they're wrong. No, I'm not going to do that in my school. In my school, I'm going to show them why. So, for example, I have a whole section on culture, and the reason why is because of the myth of systemic racism that the left pushes so much. And young people are susceptible to that because young people want things to be fair. They want a loving world. You got to think back to when you were a teenager. You're just a few steps away from being in elementary school, where it was just everyone needs to learn how to share and be nice, right? And so you get into that, and then you're a teenager, and all of a sudden you're able to kind of understand the world, and you see the ugliness, and you want fairness, right? And then here comes this leftist saying, well, they're treating minorities bad and we need to help them. And that pulls on the kids' heartstrings. How do you deal with that, right? You can't just come in and say, well, the leftist is wrong and we're right. You need to show them why this is not accurate. So I have a whole section on culture where I go through and I explain from, for a student who's maybe in 5th grade or to high school level, what culture is, what a winning culture is. And I use the example of a basketball team. I don't know if you guys are sports fans. Are you guys familiar with the Washington Wizards?
Yeah, we have all these degrees, so I think we're nerds. So just so you know.
Okay.
Oh, I'm just kidding.
Well, whatever sport you like, there's always a really bad team. There's always and the Washington Wizards have been bad for decades. And what I do is I use them as an object lesson. Like, they have all the talent in the world. They have players that are paid millions of dollars, and they can do any, run, dribble, pass, shoot, all the stuff that any other player can do. And yet the team stinks, and they've stunk for years. The problem is the culture at that team has become a losing culture, right? There's no accountability, but I go through all the reasons why. And so there's nothing the NBA isn't out trying to oppress the Washington Wizards and hold them down. That's not happening. It's not a lack of talent. It's not genetic, right? It's nothing like that. All it is a losing culture, and that can be changed, right? And so I use that as an object lesson, and then I apply that to, okay, well, now let's look at the different cultural groups in America, and let's look at which ones are excelling, which ones aren't. Oh, what do we know? What do we see here? Filipinos are excelling in America. They're not white. And then you got, Nigerians are excelling in America. They're not white. Indians are killing it. They're not. And so wait a minute, is it systemic racism, or are there different cultural groups that have different value systems, and there's different just cultural norms that are enforced in their culture that make them more successful? And so that's the kind of stuff. But see, I walk the student through that, and that's critical thinking, right? Instead of just, hey, the leftists are wrong and all this racism stuff stupid.
I think that you brought it up earlier, though. The problem is the Marxism. And Marxism, I mean, Marx was not a historian. He wasn't a sociologist, and he was a really bad judge of human character. In fact, he was only a communist because he sucked at being a businessman. He was just so bad. So really, if he'd been good at anything, he would have done that too. But I think it relies upon a worldview that's not evidential, but it is emotional. And I think that's what feeds in the, you work with high schoolers, how emotional are they? They're all emotional, right? And so it feeds into their empowerment. And then, and they want, and they're, battling for control to become individual adults. So they like that too. But I think it really relies on this magical thinking, and it's very unmeritorious. And I think that is a
Yes.
difference between a matriarchy and a patriarchy.
Yes.
Because as sucky as the Washington Wizards are, I'm sure that if I played basketball with me, they would still destroy me. And
Yes.
that's okay. I'm better than my 14-year-old. So that's good. But so there's always something to be better or worse. But the magical thinking is the problem. It's like there's a place I was thinking about working at, and they go, well, we're promoting STEM. And for women, I go, it's good to have equal opportunity if someone has got those natural, capabilities. For sure, you want to have that opening. I'm no problem with equal opportunity stuff too, but they're trying to force equity.
Why would somebody want to send their kid to our school, with even if they were even if they weren't Christian, for example? So to give you an idea, our school, we are unapologetically Christian, and we're all conservative. And when I say that, I don't mean politically, like we're going to tell you to vote a certain way, but I mean it in the sense that we believe in traditional American values. That's what I mean when I say conservative. I mean, we're conserving traditional American values, which I believe our country was founded upon the Bible principles. And I even have a whole course that teaches that. But our school, what we do is we just imagine our K through 12 program, we minus all the woke stuff. You're not going to get any of that in our K through 12 accredited program. We also have all of our teachers are Christian. And on top of that, we have Bible classes. If a parent did not want their child to take the Bible classes, let's say they were Jewish or atheist or something, they don't want the Christian Bible classes, they can minus those. If you want to, we have it, but you can say no if you want. You have that choice. Likewise, for our other program, which we call Young Patriots Academy, it's our enrichment supplemental courses that myself and my wife teach exclusively. We have the general courses that are anti-woke, where we're teaching, conservative principles, traditional American values. We're debunking a lot of the leftist lies. I also have in that a whole section I call Bible and Religion that is included, but a parent can choose if they want to take that out of their child's library, their course library, if they want to. It's going to be automatically included, but you can ask me to take it out if you want. The other classes, you're still going to get a Christian worldview. I'm still going to tell you that America was founded on biblical principles, and here they are. Here's the history, because it's just history. It's just a fact, right? But in the Bible and religion stuff, I go over like creation versus evolution. I go over, here is some evidence for the Bible. If you can choose if you want that or not, if that makes sense. So, but we have overtly Christian stuff, and then we have just stuff that's from a Christian worldview. And you can have it all, or you can just have the stuff that's from a Christian worldview and not necessarily implicitly teaching Christianity, if that's your choice.
Excellent. Excellent. Joshua, let me kind of take a look at this from a bit of a broader perspective. There are some sparks of hope out there today. Laws are popping up around the country restricting education that is infused with racial animus, gender identity, and the promotion of gender-related treatment, and discussions with school leadership without parents' permission and or even parents' knowledge. There are some laws popping up restricting that. Florida is leading the way from that perspective. Texas is in a leadership role from that perspective. The University of North Carolina has just eliminated its DEI programs and staff. It's said by the end of this year that there's so much progress being made from that perspective that up to half of the nation's students are going to be positively influenced by this wave of rejection of wokeness, and certainly that's a spark of hope. Two questions on this. One, what can parents like your neighbors that you left in California, what can parents do in states that aggressively embrace this woke indoctrination with no end in sight? What can those parents do, and what options do they have? And secondly, are you convinced, and you made reference to this earlier, are you convinced that the political left may still find a way to work this indoctrination in as themes and bypass those laws?
Okay, so what can the parents do if you're in a blue state, and then are the left still going to push it in the red states? So what can the parents do? My mind immediately goes to the second part of your question, so I'll come back to the first one. They will. And if you're in a red state, do not think that just because your state passed some law that's banning DEI or something, don't get me wrong, those are good things. It's good that they're trying to curtail this stuff. It's good that they're saying, all right, here's some of these books that are just straight up pornography, and they should not be in our schools. You know, if you want to buy it on Amazon, that's a different subject, and we can have that debate. But right now, they're not banned. You can buy it on Amazon, but just don't teach it to, second graders. Come on now, let's have some reason. There are states who are doing that, but don't. And this is the dangerous part. Even though it's a good thing that they're passing these laws, some parents are just and they let their guard down, and they think these things are getting solved, and it's not. Because I'm telling you right now, the teachers, when the doors close, there is a lot that a teacher can say. I remember when I was in school in the 90s, 30, and how much worse is it now? But when I was in high school, I had teachers who would close the door and say, what happens in this classroom does not leave this classroom. And he would go on, and he would, he'd be cussing, and he'd let us cuss. And there are certain topics that were a little risque that he'd let us discuss that probably a lot of parents wouldn't be comfortable. And that was in the 90s. So what's going on now? Your children are so impressionable. They don't want to get made fun of. They don't want to be the one who goes and tells their parent and then is the tattletale, right? So there's teachers who are still going to force this stuff. A lot of these laws that are being passed in red states are being minimized by the courts. So Florida, they tried to pass some laws, the don't say gay stuff. That's what they called it, which is nonsense. They passed those laws. It was heavily restricted by the courts, heavily restricted and minimized. And so they can only go so far. And unless these red state leaders are willing to defy the courts, which, if you ask me, I think some of them should be defying these ridiculous courts, but they're not. And unless they're willing to do that, these laws are very narrowly applied. And so don't think you're safe if you're in one of these states. Now, so that's the first part. What can parents do in blue states, if at all possible? And some people may disagree with me, but I will say, if at all possible, get out of that state. That's number one. And I am dead serious. Get out of those states if you can. It is going to get worse and worse, and it is dangerous, especially for young children. At least get out of the big cities in those states. That's my opinion. People can disagree with me. Now, if you can't, which obviously there's some who can't, what can you do? You can, as much as possible, you can homeschool. We have a lot of students that go at our school from New York and California. We have a lot of homeschool students that use our K through 12 program from New York and California. So you can do that. You can teach the kids how to counter it, but don't think that our program, we try to do the best to help students, arm them with the arguments against all the woke stuff, because they're going to get it from one angle or another. But don't think that our program is going to be the Band-Aid or the cure-all for your children going to a school for 70 hours a day, 5 days a week. It's like if a parent thinks that they can send their kids to a public school for 35 hours a week and then take them to church for an hour once a weekend, and they're going to undo all that, and all their friends are one way and all their teachings one way, and yet you think church for an hour is going to undo that? No, it's not. So we're doing our best to counter these arguments, but peer pressure is a real thing. If you can get your kids out of these schools, if you are stuck in these schools, yeah, you want to give them the ways around it. You want to give them the counter arguments. Our school is great for that. If they're in a public school, they can take our program, our enrichment lessons at Young Patriots Academy, $29 a month. You get access to all of our lessons, unlimited, cancel whenever you want, no questions asked. And that'll help. Be active, know your rights as a parent, get involved. Nowadays, they're passing laws where you only get to know, you only get to opt your kids out if you request on some of these classes, on some of these crazy sex ed stuff. So you really have to be involved to know what's going on. If you just sit there and you don't know what's going on, they're gonna railroad and push all the stuff down your kid's throat.
What's your did you have an LMS, or is it all video, or how do they do that? So
yeah. So there's two different programs. We have our K through 12 program, fully accredited. It's an online fully accredited school. So that is, and that one's obviously, that's not $29 a month. I mean, we couldn't we couldn't pay our teachers if we did that. That's more, the cost is going to be more of the national average for a private school. So, depending on what you want, a few thousand to maybe 8,000, depending on how much involvement you want. And so we can customize how much involvement you want. So we have a very inexpensive program where you get the curriculum and you get access to teacher emails and so forth, but you're not going to get a bunch of live classes. They're pre-recorded, and you can do that one for cheaper. Whereas we can, we have others. It's very customizable on the K through 12 side. On-demand videos and curriculum. But then you can add on, okay, well, here's once a week for this class of meeting live, and email responses from your teachers, whenever you have questions. And it depends on what you need, and so it's very customizable on the K through 12 side. And it's a LMS. You know what that means. Our listeners may not know. A learning management system, which is basically the software, the background of how you create a school online, a platform. So yeah, that's a custom LMS for that. Our other program, Young Patriots Academy, that's the anti-woke stuff, right? So the K through 12, that's going to be, you get like a regular high school diploma. That's going to be basically the same as if you went to a public school, in the sense that it's going to be accepted all over the country and colleges, which is what parents are worried about. So fully accredited, that's one side. Okay. Young Patriots Academy, the anti-woke stuff, myself and my wife, we exclusively teach those classes. That one, we have a separate LMS that we use. That one, you can take classes on, which you can in some degree on the K through 12 side as well. But you can take the classes on your phone. You can, we develop the curriculum ourselves completely. It's going to be on-demand video lessons for every course. There's on-demand video lessons. There's quizzes. There's projects. There's we do the grading. You don't have to, as a parent, you don't have to really do anything other than have your student do it. We recommend doing this program because it's supplemental. It's not meant to be a full program. The Young Patriots Academy. We recommend doing maybe a couple lessons a week, but you could do more, you could do less. You get access to the full library. It's up to you. If your student really wants to go gung-ho on it, it's great for if you have your own homeschool program or you have a public school student. They have a full school program somewhere else, or with our full K through 12 program, and then you add this on. Young Patriots Academy, it's an add-on. And so, so imagine if you're a homeschool parent, just to give an example, which you don't have to be, and you want to take some time off. You're tired of teaching the lessons. If you're at our K through 12 program, you don't have to teach any of the lessons. We do all that. But let's say you're one of those homeschool parents that you do the teaching at home and you want to take a break. You can throw on one of our lessons. and have your student work on that. And we have the on-demand video lesson. We have the quizzes and the projects. It's all, we do the grading, we do the teaching. And so hopefully that answers your question. But we have like over 100 lessons on there, and we're constantly adding more.
Yeah, can I ask what your enrollment is overall?
Yeah. So it's split about 50-50 between the two, the K through 12 program and the other. Each one has about 80 students. So altogether, like 160 or so students. And we have the capability, we have the capacity to accept almost endless students, because a lot of it it's on demand, and so we can hire more teachers on the K through 12 side. We are not near our capacity. So that's our biggest issue right now. We need more students.
And it's accredited, right? So
the K through 12, fully accredited, like regionally accredited, but also we have a systems accreditation that's global through Cognia, and so we can accept international students. We partner with an organization that's been around for decades, and so otherwise we couldn't do this all ourselves. And so we're able to receive the benefits of decades of experience and accreditation, and so we can accept students from really from most countries in the world, and of course every state.
Let me pick up on something that you said as we kind of lead into another topic. And I'm going to paraphrase. I think you said it better than what I'm about to say it, but let me paraphrase. I think is a powerful warning to parents. Instruction does not, even good instruction, does not equate to inoculation. That this is still going to be a mission where parents have to be involved. America in general has to be involved. Hopefully, at some point, our culture can be impacted to be involved. So I think that's a very powerful point that you made from that perspective. Let me build on that with another question, and talking about how wokeness has grown so rapidly. The reason why I believe that woke proponents really do not like debate is because it's very easy to see that is poison wrapped in a candy-coated shell. And so it can't stand a lot of vetting. But I wonder, regardless of that, it has still grown from a standpoint of academia, corporate America, media, virtually every category that we could come up with. I'm curious your perspective. Is that void that wokeness has filled, is that a result of failure of leadership in America in general today? Is that evidence that the church has failed to be salt and light in our culture? Nature abhors a vacuum. So I would argue that there is a void, there is a delta there. From your perspective, is that rapid expansion due to the fact that we've failed in our perspective of leadership? And should that be a warning to us going forward?
Absolutely. I think well, the Bible tells us when people are wicked, one of the things God does is He gives them wicked rulers, as a just judgment that they deserve. And we have allowed the current situation. We have allowed the decay of America, and it's been decades and decades in its design. We didn't knock some of this stuff out right at the beginning. The attacks on the moral structure of America, I would say, is you can draw a direct line between what we allowed as a culture morally, back in the 40s and 50s and even before. And because that stuff wasn't stomped out, you just start breaking down barriers one after another after that. There's a theory in policing called the broken window theory. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but the idea is that if a criminal, when they go into a neighborhood, if they see a bunch of broken windows that aren't fixed, what that tells them is, if they don't care about those things, I'm able to get away with other things, right? And so the reverse is also true. if you police and you take care of those things, if you're a neighborhood that says we're not going to allow trash just to be all over the streets, and we're not going to allow people to just be drunk, sleeping on the sidewalks all the time, or, you know, broken glass all over the place. If you police those things, the bigger stuff won't even come. And what we did as a country is we did not police some of the smaller things. We said, oh, you know, and I think one of the biggest problems in America today, one of the root causes of all of our troubles today, is not to blame on the crazy blue-haired leftists. No, it's tolerant Christians, overly tolerant Christians who have said, we're just going to, you know what, I don't want to push my beliefs on you, and so we're going to allow this, we're going to allow that, we're going to allow this, and all of these things, we started to just allow these things to happen. You know, I am, and I don't have, people can disagree with me if they want. I can have an opinion, and my opinion is we should have banned gay marriage a long time ago. We tried to in America. And in California, we banned that stuff back in Obama's day. In California, by popular vote, we did that. But our people are too weak, and the Supreme Court just comes along and says, no, you can't do that. And what do red states do? Oh, well, Supreme Court said it. Now we just have to roll over and just take all this. No, that's not how our country was designed.
And I remember when I was at Oregon State University, I remember when they lowered the educators' entrance GPA into the program from 3.85 to 3.35. Well, what's the logical consequence of that? You got dumber teachers. Dumber teachers don't teach smarter, they teach dumber, right? And it just going down and down and like that.
Yeah.
And versus, like, I mean, one of the hardest teachers I had for my first master's went to Oxford, man. I would bust my hump. And if I was lucky, I got like a 94. You know, that was a high grade. And he never did it. But man, I learned so much from another teacher, nice teacher, knew her stuff, easiest grader in the world. Got hundreds on everything. That doesn't help me.
Joshua, let's talk about another aspect of your experience. We've talked about the impact to the children with this dynamic, but you and Kali had a challenge yourselves specific to your career in the decision that you had with this, and I know that you spent a lot of time in prayer and a lot of time in discussion with her as you talked about the challenge from a career perspective, as it represented itself as a challenge to you and Kali. What advice do you have for other working adults in corporate America today that are experiencing this, where they stand firm on their Christian faith, but they experience this ideology shoved into their faces in many, many different ways every single day? What advice do you have for Christian survival in a sea of corporate wokeness today?
Seek ye first the kingdom of God, his righteousness. All these other things will be added to you. You know, trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not upon your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths. I mean, God has never failed us. If from a human perspective, we would be better off if we never left public school. We had cushy jobs. Being a public school teacher, it's not hard labor. If you can handle behavioral issues, if you're not one of those who falls apart when a kid's chewing gum or something like that, not everyone's cut out for it. But if you're cut out for it, if you can control a classroom, which myself and Kali and I can do, then that's the hardest part. Other than that, it's not that hard. And we're well paid in California, well paid, lots of days off, summers off, and our school district paid teachers very well. I was about to get a nice big raise if I stayed there. I have 2 master's degree, and your master's degrees, and your pay goes up based on how much, how many classes you have and so forth. So from a human perspective, we should have stayed. and we should have watched our pay continue to rise up the scale. After a while, you get up over, six figures as a public school teacher, and we could both have that. But we said to ourselves, look, we're going to be presented sooner or later with the choice where you are going to have to either go against your convictions, lie, which is a sin, and you're going to have to choose whether or not you're willing to just sin for your job or do the right thing. And we said, look, I'm not going to put myself in a position where I have to sin against my God. I'm not doing it. I don't care how much they pay me. And so we said we're going to have to find an escape route. And God has never let us down. Now, we've gotten close. He's let us get real close. He's tested our faith a couple times, but he's never let us get completely broke. What's the Bible verse? I've been young and now I'm old, and I've never seen a righteous man begging in the streets. God will take care of you. So my advice to you, and if you're one of those people in this corporate world where all this stuff is being shoved down your throat, is put God first. I don't know how, but He will find a way. If you are true to Him, He will find a way to take care of you. He did it with us. He's done it over and over in our lives. I mean, miracles. The fact that we have this school is a miracle. The fact that we know how to have an accredited partner that we're working with that's been around for decades, that was a miracle. I mean, I can't tell you how many things have happened. So I would just say stay true to your values, stay true to what you believe, and unless we have men doing that, this country's gone anyway. That's the funny thing is you try and hold on to your worldly stuff, and the reality is you hold on to that stuff and you give up your values, and you're going to lose both. If you let go of your values to hold on to the material stuff, you're going to lose both anyway. What made this country prosperous was men who would say, I'd rather die than go against what I believe. That is what makes prosperity. And I have a class on that where I teach that, following, a law and order society where people are honest, that is what made America great. That is a biblical principle. If you follow these laws, I will set you on high. That's what God told Israel, and that's what happened to America. And so that's my recommendation if you're in the corporate world. Kind of vague, but people can apply it to their own situation.
Awesome. Completely powerful. Very much appreciate that.
So I was thinking Exodus, because I go, is he Jewish? What's going on here? Or is it like, but then I thought, no, probably it's I'm sure it's a little bit of both, of being faithful and also fleeing from the evils of, slavery in California. Is that, am I on target there, on track?
Yeah. I mean, we're Christian, we're not Jewish, but it is a play on words with the Exodus. So the idea is, and that's our kind of our motto, so to speak, on our logo is exit public education. So we're trying to help this mass exodus of parents pulling their kids out of these public schools. If you can't do it, are you sure you can't? But if you really can't, you can still give them our enrichment program lessons through Young Patriots Academy. But we would like to help empower parents to pull their kids out of these schools. So yeah, that's what Exodus is.
And this might be a whole nother podcast. The dangers of AI, and do you have like plagiarism checkers in your stuff, or is that even a blip yet?
Yeah, that is something. Well, I'll tell you, when it comes to our enrichment program, it's not something that we really have to worry much about because, well, for one thing, the students have to. It's handwritten a lot. Well, most of it. There's a couple exceptions, but most of it's handwritten when it comes to any long form answers. So, I mean, they theoretically could, but you watch for that kind of stuff, and it's like, all right, here's this fifth grader, and this sounds like it's at college level. Okay, I may send the parent an email and ask what's going on. But a lot of it is like our enrichment program, a lot of it is either projects or, so like, for example, my wife has an American Dream project where she has the students, well, there's a couple parts to it, but there's one where it's like they have to come up with a budget, and it, like teaching them the life skills of, all right, you got to go on, what is it, like realtor.com and find, find the play, and she gives them a budget and you have to, figure out like play, okay, do you have enough money to survive, kind of thing, which AI is not going to help you with that. Or it'll be like, here's a lesson on a certain subject. You need to have handwritten notes, which you then take a picture of and upload onto our website. And here's a quiz on your notes. AI is not going to help you with that,
Nice. That's brilliant. I would, if I was teaching residentially, I would have them do blue books and insist that everything is written in cursive. It would guarantee,
Oh,
you know,
I would. Absolutely. Yep. I would, same thing. If I was still teaching in public schools today with the AI, everything would have to be, and you need to do it in class.
Yeah, right. And
class.
And I walk by and it's funny because in the kids, they think they're so sly and that we don't see anything, and they're they got their iPhone and they're looking at their iPhone down below. And I go, every time you access your iPhone, your face turns blue because the light goes on and I can see. Plus, you're not that smart. So, you didn't write this. I had one guy, it was the most beautiful essay I'd ever read. It was for extra credit. So he's lucky, and he passed the class with a C minus. But I was reading this, I'm going, this is just a beautiful essay. Who wrote it? Joey. Joey's an idiot. So I looked next, and Joey had lifted a whole essay on Narnia, written by C.S. Lewis. And I thought, Joey, you're a sweet guy, not very smart. Beautiful essay, though. Just right. But I put your own words. Just do your own words too. And the last question is that: do you guys do science? Do you guys do STEM stuff at the school? I would think you'd have to.
So at the K through 12, yeah, and the K through 12, we're going to have all the the terminology is A through G, like courses that you need to get into college, but even we have a ton of extracurricular stuff. So I mean, we have horticulture and French, and just, I mean, the focus really is on the K through 12 side is and it can be customized depending on the student. Like if you're in high school, you can kind of, there's your required courses and then there's your electives, but our focus is like business. We're trying to teach kids like critical thinking and business skills and things like that, which is kind of where a lot of education is headed nowadays. So yeah, science, yeah, we absolutely have that stuff. Yeah.
Good.
On the, what's it called, on our enrichment side with the Young Patriots Academy, the only science stuff I have is like evolution versus creation. So not necessary, I'm not having them do experiments or anything, but they are learning some. Yeah.
I just got done working with another master student at Liberty, and he did his book on neo-Darwinian fallacies, which is really fun. And he did such a great job. I worked with Jeff too on his, but this guy was really smart compared to Jeff. This other guy, no. Okay, Jeff's brilliant too. God's blessed me with so far really good master students. But this one guy, if you've ever heard of the Discovery Institute out of Seattle.
Yeah.
So my student, he wrote his book, and he gave the manuscript to his pastor, who knew a guy named Jonathan McClatchy, who works there. And Jonathan really kind of sharply critiqued it, and my student was freaking out. I go, this is great, free editing from like a guy top. So he fixed all those things too, and then the student's been invited to go to like the Discovery Institute has a summer program. They got invited by McClatchy, and it's just beautiful. And that's kind of what you want for your students. I want to see the students get better and smarter, and and just kind of grow, and then they can actually be an asset to society. So that's good. But I don't see that
Here's
with
the puppy, by the way.
That's nice.
Appearance.
I have a little kitten. I got a little cat, and she's like about 12 weeks old, and she's been outside my office door. I get the glass door and just kind of clawing and crying. So you saw me smiling if I see her there. So it's fun. So
Joshua, I pray for John a lot, but I continue to pray for John regarding his judgment and discernment regarding his elders. That's what I pray for John the most. Joshua, if we had all of America's parents listening to the podcast right now with school-age children, what would be your message to them today?
Well, they should come to Exodus Institute. If you have school-age students, you should. You know what? The ideal for kids, I believe, and this is ideal, so it's not always possible, is the kids to be at home and to be taught by their parents, and that is like the ideal, and that's what we've had for thousands of years. It's generally the norm. A lot of times parents don't have the time to do that today. So the next best thing is for them to be at home with their parents being able to see whenever they want what is being taught to them. So our school, we try to get as close to that ideal of as possible. Keep your kids at home, keep them close to you. But if you're one of those, like most people who says, I don't know how to teach algebra or, advanced algebra and all this stuff. I don't know how to teach French. Well, you can do an online school program through our school that's fully accredited, that you're going to get a diploma that is just as valid as a high school diploma that your kid can take to any college or university that they want generally, and that it's accepted, not only in the U.S. but is internationally. And so that is the ideal. We're trying to help parents to pull them away from these bad influences in these schools, get them at home, but also give them that top-notch quality education in their home, bringing that to their home where the parent doesn't have to do any of the teaching or the grading. We handle all that with accredited Christian teachers. And then if you want your student to learn, which I recommend, that they learn the arguments against wokeism, because they're going to hear it somewhere. They're going to hear it in the movies. They're going to get woke messages. They're going to hear it in music. They're going to hear it from some of their friends. They're definitely going to hear it if they end up going to college. You're going to get these woke messaging pushed on your kids from every angle. They need the counter arguments, right? And so that is what you're going to get with our enrichment program, Young Patriots Academy. Both of them can be found on our website at thinkexodus.org. So I recommend doing both if you can.
Joshua, we can't thank you enough. It is very easy to see that you've got the heart of a teacher in your DNA. You've been a terrific guest. We'd love to invite you back. There's about 20 other topics that John and I didn't even get to cover that we'd love your perspective on it. For now, we absolutely wish and pray for the very best with you and Collie, your mission, your commitment, your objective, and your ministry. So thank you very much, and we very much appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you for having me on. I had a great time.
Thanks for joining our podcast today. Check the links below on how to purchase a copy of Deconverted, as well as the library of books written by John S. Knox, including the book he mentioned today, Sacroegoism. As we grow our channel and podcast, it helps if you subscribe and hit the like button below, so we would appreciate that. And we have a number of amazing guests in the days ahead, so continue to monitor our channel for new content. One note to wrap up our discussion from today. Keep in mind that Jesus said that the gates of hell will not prevail against the church. So while there was every expectation, and there continues to be every expectation that we will be under constant spiritual attack, you've got to keep one thing in mind. Evil does not win, and the church of the living God will never be defeated. The question is, what side of the battle will you be on? Our prayers for you and your family in these dark days. Just remember, while culture attempts to attack and label you with all sorts of hate and mockery, as the writer of Romans says, if God is for us, who can possibly be against us? Thanks for joining us today.